I have a mental process that I started with and I learned and I never changed it. And for 10 years, I go through the same thing. And when I don't make a sale, I can always go back and figure out where I didn't make a sale and say, here's where I went wrong. And if you go back to the wrong spot, you go, hey, let's go back a little bit. And if you go back to the wrong spot, you're just like trying to convince them to do something they didn't want to do. And so we always want to make sure that when we talk to someone, we talk to them where they want to go. So let me show you my process. And then let me show you, we'll go through some concepts. And everything I show you, I think about when I'm in the field, or I do in the field on a regular basis. So this is, and every PowerPoint I make, I just basically strip it apart from something that's already previously made. So we're going to talk about today about increasing production. Is that okay? If we increase production, that's a good thing, correct? And so when we increase production, here's what this means. You need to build agreements as you go, and you need to build agreements in the right order, right? And so if you build agreements in the wrong order, it is rude, it is spammy, and you don't make money. You actually ruin relationships. So for example, here's the order. I want to talk about principles and values first. We have to agree on this. So for example, if I meet with, I'm going to get Chris maybe to unmute and we'll kind of chat. If I say, hey Chris, how long have you been married? And Chris answers me. Go ahead, Chris. We'll role play a little bit.
Okay. Yes. I've been married for 16 years. 16
years. I'm on my 17th, but I've been married 16, so it's very similar. And so we agree that, okay, he believes in marriage. We don't even need to discuss it. I say, hey Chris, you go to church?
Yes.
Oh, me too. So we agree that we go to church. We got to have something in common. If I meet someone and they're always going to the pub and they're always drinking and partying, it's different than if they're married 16 years, family and kids. You have to agree. What do these people value? If a single guy says, I'd like to get married and have a family one day, then we probably have the same values. Does that make sense? And so if you don't know their values, and if you don't know their values, how do you even talk to them about something? And so we don't want to get to know the product. We want to get to know the prospect. Don't study the product. Study the person in front of you. After we get to know some values, we want to go through a concept. And I'm going to go through some examples of a concepts. But one example of a concept is to spend less than you make and invest some money. So I might say, hey, would you like to spend less than you make and invest some money? They say, yes, I would like to. Very, very simple. A concept is a picture that you guys agree on. So if I talk to someone and I say, hey, would you like to spend less than you make and save some money? And they say, no, I would like to spend less than I make and pay off my debt. Now the concept's different, right? So we have to agree on the concept. Then I want to talk strategy. So strategy looks like this. Hey, why don't we save for the future? And why don't we use a safe product? And why don't we combine saving and insurance? And we'll put it into a policy like a life insurance policy so it saves taxes. This is the strategy we're going to present. They say, hey, that sounds good. I agree that sounds like a good strategy. Then I can expose them to a product. If I do it in the wrong way, it sounds like this. Hey, Chris, you want to buy life insurance?
If yes, sure.
Nobody says yes. But you have to build it up to say, I agree, I agree, I agree, I agree. Mm-hmm. If I presented a guy last week some products, and he's like, I want to think about it. So then I got to backtrack and figure, okay, it was just a term policy, very inexpensive. I look at the strategy, that made sense to him. Look at the concept, single guy, no family, not a huge need for insurance, maybe cover future coverage. So I can go back to principles and values. I want to protect my wife, but this guy is not married. So I say, maybe he wants to protect his parents. Maybe I want to figure out what he wants to protect. Maybe he just wants to invest, not buy the insurance, but I want to go back through. So if people are, for example, going through on social media and they're marketing their business, usually they do something crazy to say everybody should buy life insurance as a strategy. But if you talk about strategy before a concept, it's rude, spammy. You get emails, buy life insurance from me, buy investments from me. And so we want to build it in the right order. Is there any questions about that? Does that make sense that if you build it in the wrong order, it becomes rude and unprofessional, and then the client says no? But they're not saying no to the product, they're saying no to something before the product, because our products are sound, they just don't want to pay for something they don't understand. Now, before I go through this, if you are comparing and competing, you want to compete on the lower level of the foundation, not the top level. For example, there's a concept out there called buy term, invest the difference. I like that concept a lot. In fact, I invest and I do own term and I do own whole permanent. But buy term, invest the difference is a concept, and they'll never compare that concept to another concept called X curve. They would never compare X curve and buy term, invest the difference, because concept to concept, that's the same concept. So what they do is they say, let's look at a product called permanent life insurance, and buy term, invest the difference as a concept will always beat a product, because concept have no fees, concept has no risk, concept has no human nature, concept has no flaws, but products do have flaws. Does that make sense? So if someone has, for example, a retirement account, and I look at their retirement account, and I go through and I say, hey, you got a retirement account over here, it's a product, and they like their advisor, I can just go here and I can compare their product to a concept and say, instead of all this risk in the mutual fund and the fee, maybe we move to safety. And I can move it around by replacing a product in their mind with a concept in their mind. Then I can rebuild to the product I want to sell them. Does that make sense when we're building the consumer? Can everyone either nod your head yes, you have no idea what I'm talking about? Make sense, Don? So what I want to talk to today is concepts. Now, you should know basic concepts. Okay? You got to know basic concepts. You got to go to workshops. You got to learn a concept like the Rule of 72, believe in compound interest. You got to believe in, staying invested. These basic concepts. Otherwise, you're dead in the water. You don't stand a chance, okay? Like the competitors will walk all over you. This business can be cruel. And so you got to master values, get to know the client. If you don't know what to sell, just keep asking the client questions. Go through, become very curious. If I could be good at values, concepts, and strategies, the products change. You guys agree? You got to know some product, but I could sell a product I don't know if I know the first three. So some of the things you guys know is X curve, wealth risk responsibility. Hey, we should buy two products, insurance and investments. Long term, you don't know what's going to happen. And then they say, hey, that makes sense. And then you build the product after the concept. Or you have managed growth and safety. We'll talk a little bit about that too. Or you say, hey, the reason your future is not going to be very good is you're not saving any money. Can you commit to $200 or $300 a month and we'll put it towards a program into your future? Here's how this looks. Or dime. You say, hey, listen, you need to buy a big term policy because you got a bunch of kids. Here's how much you need. You need $2 million or $1 million. And you sell a big policy. Usually dime is built to sell term because they have a $400,000 policy and they buy a $2 million policy. Or asset allocation. They say, hey, I'm invested in 5 stocks and you want to move them to a mutual fund. So you say asset allocation, you draw some circles on a piece of paper or draw a picture of a pie, and then they move their money to you, right? So these are all concepts that a client agrees to. They say, I agree in compound interest or I agree in whatever. Does that make sense that these things you guys should know? Unless it's your first month, but you guys should know this, correct? Everyone nods your head. I see you guys. So let's go through I want to go through some concepts that I use in the field on a regular basis. And then you guys can say, I like that concept or you don't like the concept. But I always wonder, what do people do in the field? I draw a few things in a line. They usually read this before I meet them. So I'm not always reading this on the appointment. I say, read this before you meet me. It's a couple hours. But I use what we call 4 quarters of life quite a bit. If you're taking notes, this might be a good option. But I say, hey, when we do financial planning, we do 4 quarters into a life. So from your 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, and 60 to 80. And I say, me and Chris are the same age. We're both 38-ish, I hope. And so you're right there. Your clock is running out. Now, when you're 0 to 20, you're a kid. From 20 to 40, you're the firsts. Your first home, your first car, your first job, your first family, maybe, hopefully your last family, your first career, your first business, whatever it is. That says firsts. Now you're building your family. So you're building your career, you maybe building your second home. Usually you're taking care of your kids, as they get older, maybe sending some money to there. And then from 60 to 80, you want to rest because maybe you're old. Maybe if you're over 60 today, maybe you're not old, but you get it. So I say basic financial planning, and I use this for people who own a bunch of products. And so I say basic financial planning says, hey, if you pass away in the next couple of years, you own a term policy. Just to protect your family while you're building. But really what I want to do is take some of your money and send it to the future. Actually, the most vulnerable time you'll be is when you're very old, like 75 to 80. So I want to send money as far into the future as we can. And you can use, in Canada, you can use TFSA, RSP, IRA, Roth, whatever you can do for early retirement. But I want to send money far into the future. And we use different products to send money to when you're 80 than to send money when you're 60. And so we sometimes can use insurance products, but we can't really buy a bond because the longest bond you can buy is a 30-year bond. So bonds don't work if you're investing more than 30 years. We don't know what the price will be. When you're investing over 50 years, it's kind of hard to use a stock portfolio because what's the price of Apple going to be in 50 years? In 2070, is Apple even going to exist? So I might want to use an insurance product to send money to when you get very old. That way, when you're saving money, if you have extra money, it goes to your kids. But if you run out of money, it comes back to you. So when you're very old, you have extra money. How do you feel about sending money to when you're very old? And they say, hey, yeah, and then we talk about their parents, maybe long-term care, permanent critical illness, whole life policies, different policies to send money to their old. And they say, yeah, that sounds good. Maybe they have a pension already, and I say, hey, when you get old, you might need extra money. And so we develop products to send it to where they're very old. And then maybe if they have more money than they need, it goes to their kids. So we call this the 4 quarters of life. It gets them thinking long-term, and it gets them thinking that their financial plan is a circle. Like, hey, if you have too much money, it goes to your kids. So it's not like I start, I end, and then my kids are broke. Everything you do well goes to your kids. Everything your kids do well goes to their kids, and on and on and on. You got any questions about this? Does this make sense? And it's quick. People say, yeah, that makes sense. I want to send money to when I'm 80. That way, when you're 80, you're okay, and beyond. And so up in Canada, it's more prudent to draw money out of your life insurance when you're very old than early in retirement. In the States, I'm sure it's similar, but you guys can build your policy accordingly. So that's one concept. And then people say, yeah, I like it. This is my favorite. If you know me and you know how I sell, this is the favorite concept of all. It is the core concept. If I built my own company like Swan, instead of X-Curve, I would run Widow's Gap. Just so you know. This is, by the way, it's the most profitable concept I've ever seen. Who has seen Widow's Gap? Can you put your hand up? Check this out. On average, if you have a husband and wife, there is a 5-year difference between my lifespan and my wife's lifespan. And so Dime sells term, Widow's Gap sells whole life, or UL, whatever you want to sell. Up in Canada with whole life and VUL, different things. But you want to sell a permanent policy, how much permanent policy do you need? What's the needs analysis? Nobody knows, just whatever the budget is, right? So here's the needs analysis. When I pass away, let's say I am 90 and my wife dies at age 95. Here's what's going to happen. I might lose my pension. It might take 6 months for my pension to transfer to my wife. So I need to cover 6 months of my pension income. So if I make $3,000 a month, I need $30,000 right there. Then I also got to protect my home equity. So when you have a 90-year-old who passes away, how many of you guys think that home is fully renovated? Do 90-year-olds have nicely renovated homes? I renovate it when I'm 65, and then I never renovate my home until I'm 90. So my wife is going to sell a home when I died in it. She's going to say, I don't want to live here anymore. The guy died in my bed. So what I need to do is I need to have like maybe $50K so I can paint, renovate my house so my wife can get all the equity out of my house. And the government, my pension's not going to transfer to my wife, the government benefits. So she's going to lose about $2K. And she might need a down payment on a house. So I might need $50K. And I also want to make sure that she has 5 years income. So the widow's gap is usually 6 months to 5 years is her need. My wife will need 6 months of income for sure, maybe 5 years income. And the most vulnerable person on the world is a widow who's 90 years old, can't get a job. I don't want my wife at 90 years old going to my funeral in a red dress and red lipstick, looking for a husband. Because that's what they do. You know, maybe not, you don't know, but that's how it works. She's a good-looking lady. She'll probably be good-looking at 90. And so I want to have some money set aside, not just for retirement, but that she's taken care of for her last 5 years. You know how long 90 years is if you have money compared to 5 years if you don't have money? That 5 years would be longer than the 90. And my number one goal is to take care of my wife. So when you find a husband who says, by the way, when I got married, I made a mistake. This is how I close it. I told her, till death do us part. But that was a mistake. I should have said, joint last to die. I promise to take care of you until you die, not till I die. My promise will last my wife's life, not mine. And so if she lives on average 5 years longer than me, I'm not worried about my retirement. I'm worried about her and widowhood, making sure she's taken care of. And so I must take care of my wife when she's the most vulnerable. If she's pregnant, she goes on mat leave. She becomes a widow, she goes on widow leave, and I take care of her. But that's what I call the widow's gap. And I usually sell policies to the man, and the wife says, I sell her the long-term care, and I sell the man the insurance. I would rather go without anything and make sure my wife's taken care of than have a lot. Does that make sense, widow's gap? Is this talked about in the financial industry?
No.
You want to sell a 6 months to 5 year income? You say, hey, listen, if I make $100K a year, I need $50K to $500K in permanent. Or $50K to $250K. Minimum. Make sure my wife is okay, and then I add some inflation to that. Maybe I have the policy grow. So now I say, hey, you need $50K. This is a need. It's not a want. I need to take care of my wife. Now, if I want to make sure she doesn't start dating, going to, she's wearing a red dress to church, red lipstick to church, all that kind of craziness, I don't want that happening. So I make sure she's taken care of. Any questions about widow's gap? Is that a cool concept, that my wife might outlive me? Now, you could save for it. I just don't know when I'm going to pass away, so it just makes more sense to buy life insurance. But I think so. Now, if you have a team member that's seen all the comments of these ones, you can go back to them and say, hey, by the way, you love your wife? I just saw a hole in your financial plan. The hole is that you might leave a widow behind, and it might not work out. So I sell that. Any questions about widow's gap? Questions are good, then I might have the answer. And I explain it just like this. And you can see I could do big premium if a guy loves his wife. True? More premium than people love their wife more than the guy loves the wife more than the kids, but the wife loves the kids more than the husband. Yeah. That's how it works. So just so we know. So here's another strategy, a concept. And this is usually a concept they say, I like that. And it kind of like opens a door to show a strategy. To say, let's find a strategy. Let's do a permanent. Let's do whatever we want to do. By the way, when you talk about widow's gap, and you're competing with a company that only sells term, can a company that only sells term ever care for a widow? They only care for orphans. Because term protects the orphan, permanent protects the widow. So I own term to protect my wife and my orphan if I pass away, but I own permanent to protect the widow. Now a full plan protects 5 people. The orphan, the widow, the sick, the elderly, and those who work hard. That's who it protects. I'm the guy who works hard. I hope I'm not the other 4. Right? So you gotta make some commission. So here's the barbell strategy. This is used for someone that thinks they can always outperform you. They say, I love indexing, I love Bitcoining, I love Ethereuming, I love NFTing, I do stock trading, I do whatever. I say, listen, whenever you're investing, you need to know how much you can lose. And when you're lifting a barbell, here's how a barbell works. This is a barbell. Now, the rule is you should never lose more than half your money. Because if you can double your money and you'll never lose more than half, you can always come back. It's good for gambling too. So here, I want to have some of my money safe and some of my money at risk. Now, in theory, the more risk you take, the more return you get. But you can only take so much risk until you go crazy. You know, the human being can only handle so much. So when I look at like a sovereign wealth fund or an institutional managed fund and it's 90% equity, my client can't be 90% equity. But I can say, hey, if you have some money, and this also avoids sequence of return risk, because I can say, if 50% of my money is safe and 50% of my money is at risk, I can ratchet up the risk knowing my wife will always be okay. I just have to retire late. And so I can say, listen, I like taking risk with my money. And so when I push a barbell, I always want to make sure the other side of the barbell is the same. So I say, I'm going to help you out the safe side. And then you put your money at risk. You know how to put your money at risk? Good. The more money you put at risk, the more money you should put in safety. I have a good friend of mine now. He's a nuclear physician. I showed him this. He makes $1.1 million a year. And he said, I plan on saving $250,000 a year. So why don't we do 150 over here? I'll do $100,000 into funds that you choose a year. And $50,000 on his own gambling, whatever he chooses, buying individual stock. So he said, I'll do $100,000 into managed funds. $50,000 goes crazy. And he'll do $100,000 into a whole life policy. And he says, over my lifetime, I won't be broke and have a good chance to get rich. And so my biggest policy so far is $107,000. This is what I showed him. I thought, thank God he believes in the barbell strategy. And then he says, when you say safety, I say, listen, there's 2 worlds. There's fixed income investing and variable. The best fixed income, that's what I want to look at. The best fixed income is very long term. I can't use banks and I can't use bonds because both those, the interest rate sucks. So I got to go to a dividend paying policy. It's fixed income, only grows, never lose, blah, blah, blah. You guys can build whatever policy you want after they agree on a concept or a strategy. That's easy to build a policy. When the guy says, I got $100,000, I never want a negative, what can you do? You build what you can do. Any questions about the barbell strategy? Is that cool? Because sometimes they want risk. I say, listen, when you're young, you should take risk. You should take lots of risk. But you should also build an emergency fund. Once your amount at risk is more than an emergency fund, so let's say I got $10,000 emergency fund, $10,000 at risk, and I got another $10,000, maybe I should take 5 and 5. and you present this and they say, I agree with you. I say, I'm as an advisor, I'm in the risk management business, not the risk taking business. So I want to reduce your risk. Let me manage all this stuff. You let some idiot manage this stuff. I don't want to get sued or whatever. We do manage a lot of risk. I'm over 10 million under management and assets. So we play on that side too. But this strategy is to move things to safety. Any questions about this one? When you have a client in 100% equities and you think this guy's, by the way, I don't care about the return here. I care about the G word, a guarantee. Now you can put more risk on the risk side. That's all. Does this help? Sometimes we would say, I do this, or I say, hey, I think you take too much risk in your equity portfolio. We should do balanced portfolio. Balanced is a bunch of bonds and a bunch of equity. But the problem with the balanced portfolio is the bonds suck right now. They're coming back up, but bonds aren't that good. You need them. The regulator makes us, put them in. But if I could say, hey, you could take 50% guarantee somewhere else, then you could have equity in your market, get good return. This is one of the ones I do a lot, to sell insurance to people that don't need it. If you need insurance, the premium is tiny. If you don't need it, the premium is monstrous. Okay? Because wealthy people don't need it, but they buy the most. You think Don wants to buy more insurance? Maybe he doesn't need it anymore. Maybe he's financially set. I don't know. But he wants to buy more. So this is retirement replacement. So here's how I do it. I say there's two people. If you buy life insurance, and by the way, none of this talks about the cash value. Very rarely we talk about cash value. The death benefit is what people want to pay for. The cash value, it works in this situation. So I say, let's say I got a client. Let's say there's two clients here. One of them has 400,000. That's a bag of money. And they got 400K. And the other client doesn't have as much for retirement, because the more money you spend in one area on your financial foundation, the less money you spend on another area. So the other guy has 300,000 in his bag of money as a retirement plan. This is very common numbers. A lot of people don't have 2-3 million. It's between 100 and 700 grand is most people's retirement. Plus this guy's got an insurance policy for 200 grand. So he took 100 grand, paid off a policy. He's got 100 grand less in his retirement. So if he dies, his family gets more, but if he lives, he's got less in retirement. So here's the issue. Most people go into retirement married. If you're not married, it's hard to save that kind of money because you only have one income. So you're married. Now let's picture this. I'm married. I get sick. And this guy's sad now. That's me. And the doctor tells me I have 2 years left to live. How much of that 400 grand can I spend? Can you use your fingers on the camera? Lots or little or nothing? I worry about my wife. Maybe she'll run out of money. 400 grand is not a lot. So she tells me, I hate Netflix, but let's buy it anyways. Netflix. Let's just watch Netflix till you die. We'll spend time together. Let's spend the last 2 years together. Let's buy a cookbook and just cook every day, and maybe I'll cook you to health. But we ain't gonna spend that money because she's maybe we're like 70 years old, and she's still got 20 years left to go. So I say, can you think you could talk a spouse into spending money when she knows she's going to outlive you? They're terrified of running out of money. And then here's the story I tell. When you are going to run out of money, it's like being on the highway and forgetting to fill up gas. And then you look at your GPS and there's 50 kilometers or 50 miles to the next gas station. And you got like a tenth of a tank, or an eighth of a tank in the US. And you think you're going to run out of money or run out of gas, but you don't know. So what happens is you reel down the windows, you let the heat in, you turn off the air conditioner. You're worried about running out of gas. And now you're not on vacation anymore on the highway. You're worried about running out of fuel. That next 50 kilometers is terrible because if you run out of gas, vacation's over. But this is retirement. The worst part about retirement isn't running out of money. It's thinking you're going to. Human beings go crazy. But now I go over to this side and I got the same family, me and my wife, and I get some kind of sickness. And I got 2 years left to live. And I tell my wife, thank God I bought this policy that's never going to renew, and hopefully I paid it off. And it's no longer a premium. Would you mind we take $150K over the next 2 years and we go see the world? And we do some experimental treatment and we do what we want to do. Then when I pass away, I'm going to replace what we took out. And you'll be okay. Now, I'm selling a $200,000 permanent policy to a 60-year-old who's entering in retirement, because if you don't have permanent insurance and you're self-insured, this guy's self-insured. If you're self-insured, you can't spend that money because it's insurance money. So I don't always believe in self-insurance, because if I got 400 grand saved, I'm not going to cancel my house insurance. I'm not going to cancel my car insurance. I'm not going to cancel my dental insurance. I'm not going to cancel any of my insurance. Why would I cancel my life insurance? I don't want to self-insure 1 for 1. I want to self-insure 2 for 1 or 3 for 1 or 5 for 1 if you buy it young enough. So retirement replacement says if you have enough money to retire, take some of that money, buy a policy. That way it will replace your spouse's retirement and she can have a chance at a second go at it. Maybe she can go buy a nice dress and go get married again. Any questions about retirement replacement? By the way, if you're on your way to retirement, do you think you'd buy a policy if you're healthy enough and it's the right price? I think, hey, I found a hole in your plan. What happens if you get sick and I can't sell you CI anymore because you're too old, it's too expensive? Why don't we buy a policy? You get twice what you put in out of it. And by the way, here's what also happens. Let's say it doesn't work out and my wife passed away first. I say, I bought a life insurance policy, I don't need it. When I'm really old, maybe I have 150 grand cash. I can pull that cash back into my retirement, and I can 50 grand goes to my son. Because the cash value is really, if I outlive my wife and my kids, I shouldn't have bought the policy. Give me my cash back, and maybe the final little bit goes to charity. So I think the cash value for me is, what if I outlive my son and my wife? Then maybe I don't need the policy. Give me my money back, plus a little bit of interest. So that's a retirement replacement. Questions? Good? By the way, these are monster premiums usually. They're like $500,000 a month. I just did one for $500 a month to 2 truck drivers. They said they're going to truck drive till 80 years old. They don't have any money in the market. They canceled all their retirement plans. They're just paying off their home and building equity in their truck and saving cash, because that's what worked. I said, hey, listen, I got something that's better than cash because it's going to protect you a little bit later. They said, perfect. That way the widow gets extra money. And it's like crisscross. One more. You guys got time for one more?
I think 2 minutes, Daniel.
Okay, 2 minutes. Here's family banking. I call it family banking.
Take your time, Daniel. Take your time.
Oh, take your time. Take your time.
They should be quick, because when you show someone a concept, they have to be able to say, I get it. Makes sense. So here's my situation. This is the concept I bought. There's me, my wife. By the way, she's pregnant with a female coming in, a daughter. And then I got a little boy and a little girl. And family banking to me looks like this. I bought an insurance policy on myself. I bought an insurance policy on my wife. Now, if you can't afford a lot of insurance, buy term, make money, and convert it. There's 2 ways to use term. Convert or claim. Who here wants to claim on their term while they're young? That's stupid. That's why I hate term policies that aren't convertible. I don't want a policy that only has one way to use it. That's the dumbest thing in the world. I need 2 ways to use it, to convert it or to claim on it. So I own a bunch of term I plan on converting, and I own a little bit of permanent. I'd like to own more. You always want to own more good stuff. And then I also own a policy on this guy, and I will own a policy on her, and I'll buy it before she's born. So the day she's born, she's covered. If there's any diseases, I get 150K. So you could do that up in Canada. You put a term rider. It's covered the moment they're born. Not huge, but whatever. So now what happens is, when I pass away, I have a little bit more than income replacement. So some of that money is going to go to my wife, but some of it is going to go to a family account. Now, it doesn't work for the first generation. If you're the first generation and you never inherit no money, you got to work like a dog and save a lot of money. That's the problem with this program. Then this policy, when my kids have kids, maybe they'll have kids, I'm going to use my money to buy their policies. And I'll use my policy to convert their term. And everyone in my family, when they die, is going to feed this bank. And after 2 or 3 generations, we're going to have enough money that we have a family trust. And I can say, everyone in your family has a policy. Now, when you pass away, your family's not impoverished, they're enriched. And I'm not emotional. I just care about the long-term effect. And I think everyone in my family should own life insurance. I think it's underpriced. So I buy it. Now, you can build it wrong, but that's what I call family banking, in the sense that you can't be a bank unless you got 20, 30 million in the bank. Otherwise, you're not a bank. You got a bank account. If you go to CIBC, their checking account has a $2 million maximum. You can't put more than $2 million in it. It's just a fine print. Check your bank account. Fine print says more than this, they don't want it. So you need to have like a couple million, 5 million, 10 million in a bank. So a couple generations of compounding. That's the problem with trying to get to 10 million. But that's what family banking looks like. One more concept. By the way, you must build agreements as you go. And I believe you build them in the right order. If a guy says, I don't believe in protecting my wife, she's good to work, she's got a good job, you can't sell her some of these concepts. You got to say, the value is long-term care. You know how I sell long-term care? I say this. Can your wife lift you out of the bathtub after you've been all soaped up? And they say no. I say, what if she was 80? Think she could lift you out of the bathtub then if she works out? No. I say, hey, listen, if you're married, would you ever want to change your spouse's diaper and wipe their bum? They say no. I say, you need to buy a policy so you pay a stranger to do that. So your kids aren't wiping your bum and your spouse isn't trying to get you out of the bathtub. They say, yeah, that makes sense. Then we do healthcare planning. So check this out. If I'm talking about convention, we can't meet without talking about convention. I say, hey, Don, do you care about increasing your income? I say, we got $1,000 and we're going to invest it. And I want you to get the best return on that $1,000. The concept is this. Don't buy a mutual fund. Don't buy life insurance. Don't buy Bitcoin. Don't buy a rental property. You know what you need to do? You need to buy some skill, some conviction, some belief, and some friends. You know where we find those? Skill, belief, conviction, and friends? The strategy is we're going to use that to go to Texas. And we're going to buy skill, belief, conviction, and some friends who are winning, not loser friends. Okay? We'll upgrade a little bit. So here's the product. The product is you need a flight, you need a ticket, you need a hotel, you need some of these things. Let's try to keep it under $1,000, maybe $2,000 if you need a king bed or something. But if they say, no, I don't believe in $1,000, I say, some people say, when I get money, I never want to release my money because I'll never earn it again. Oh, your value is such a poverty thinking. So they don't even listen to the concept when you say you might have to spend your own money. They're like, you have to spend my own money? They don't like it. So you say, hey, listen, why don't you spend it on yourself? Bet on yourself. They say, yeah, betting on myself, that makes sense. I value myself. Here's the concept. Bet on yourself. Here's the strategy. And then you sell it as a... But if they say no, you have to figure out what don't they believe in? Are our values the same? Do they believe in the business? The concept of buying skill and buying conviction. And you know how you get belief? If you want to commit criminal acts, go to a riot. They'll go crazy. You'll see the crowd. You'll be a criminal too. You want to be a business owner? Go to a crowd where there's business owners. That's the concept. Then they would do it. But this is all I have. If there's no questions, we're good. But I think when we talk about concepts, a concept is just an idea that you can paint a picture. A great concept I heard this week is do you want to, for farmers, I say, when you look at premium, you hate premium because you hate insurance. Farmers hate insurance. But if you have to milk a cow or kill the cow, what would you rather do? They always say, I'd rather milk the cow than kill it. And you say, milking the cow is the premium. Killing the cow is the tax. Pay the premium, and then the insurance pays the tax. And they say, that makes sense. You milk the cow, you pay a little premium now, but you don't have to pay the tax. You say, yeah, I milk the cow, no kill it. They say, I get it. How much can you afford? As much as I can. The concept, don't even show a product if they don't believe in the concept. That'd be dumb if I say, let me show you how good this product is. I show them a spreadsheet into infinity. They don't even know what they're looking at. They don't believe in the concept. So any questions? If not, I pray that this helps you make money fast. I pray it helps Don get a promotion, someone get a green jacket. If you can't make money in our industry and you've been more than 90 days, you got a partner of someone who's making money. There's enough people making money. You can find someone. You got to work on either your belief system, your conviction. Maybe you don't believe in the product yet. The best way to control your tone of voice? Sell something you believe in. Now, we got a bunch of products that I don't believe in, so I don't sell them. We got a bunch of investments I don't like. I don't sell them. I'm not convicted yet. But I do believe in a balanced fund. I believe in an equity fund. I believe in permanent life insurance, term, health insurance, disability, I believe in all the basics. So, any questions for me? Or I'll leave it back to you, Chris. You can close it out. I pray you guys make money and you take your spouse for a nice dinner and you tell her as a widow you're going to take care of her. That's my goal.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. Let's give Daniel a round of applause.